Part 82. I'm Really Immortal. Author, Chulian Kuikan Rusiahua. Chapter 835. After walking for a while, Nuan let go and lay on his back with her cell phone. She searched for a series of products on the shopping website using high-slit jumpsuit as a keyword and showed it to Lu Chang'an. The model pictures of these products are very large. If you describe them in words in a novel, there is a danger of harmonization. However, on these shopping websites, you can zoom in with 2 fingers, display them from multiple angles, and perform close-ups. It is really interesting. Lu Chang'an took a look and realized that it was this one. He knew it well. Hong Kong movies in the 1980s and 1990s always liked to arrange some female characters to appear in swimsuits. Many of them wore bikinis with high slits. For example, Li Ji wore this kind of bikini in a famous swimming pool scene. As for whether it was included in later Hong Kong films, Lu Chang'an didn't know, because just like the overall development there, Hong Kong films were in decline and unsightly. Even if there were occasional high-quality films, not many people continued to pay attention to Hong Kong films. It looks good, well, what I wear is similar to this one. I also have a stroppy backless one, which is a little bolder, but more suitable for summer. And Nuan smiled with a blush, even though she is a pure girl, but she has been tainted by Lu Chang'an. Even though he had tried very hard to maintain the shyness and reserve of a young girl, he would inevitably fall into depravity after being defiled, and it was normal for him to want to seduce her. But if I go to a swimming pool that is open for business, I am a little shy. What's more, for a beautiful girl like me, you will inevitably be a little bit exclusive and want to treat me as your private property. You don't want other men to watch and take advantage of you, don't deny it. That boy just came here to express his love, but you shot him into the lotus pond and dug out the lotus roots. And Nuan giggled and stretched out her fingers to scratch Lu Chang'an's cheek. Sure enough, he showed a thoughtful expression, and Nuan discovered that his little thoughts were helpless and difficult to defend. But, the school swimming pool is closed on May Day, Dragon Boat Festival and other long holidays. I can ask Uncle D, who manages the gymnasium, to borrow the key to practice volleyball and then go to the swimming pool to play. And Nuan was a little proud and hummed. He said, "Hurry up and praise me for working so hard to give you benefits." Lu Chang'an glanced at the mobile phone she was still holding, dragged her hands behind and gently patted the volleyball, and laughed. Of course I will praise you, but the words spoken by lips and tongue will inevitably be frivolous. I will use practical actions repay your benefits. Hate. Driving again. And Nuan hugged Lu Chang'an's neck tightly, biting his ear and humming. A girl like her couldn't drive with her. She was shy when driving, but she couldn't help but said, "Look forward to it, right?" Expectations are expectations, but I have been thinking about a question just now. How do you go to the toilet today? In order to wear this and reduce the trouble of going to the toilet, you just don't drink water all day, Lu Chang'an asked doubtfully. And Nuan couldn't help laughing, a little embarrassed, but isn't it unusual for girls to often endure some anti-human designs in order to look better? The most typical ones are high heels that are over 10 centimeters, just like walking on stilts. Even if the heels are 7 to 8 or 9 centimeters, it is not an easy task. Also, in order to avoid wearing thick clothes, I would quietly place a warm baby on my waist and abdomen when I go out. You have to take them all off. And Nuan still answered, letting him know how difficult it is for girls. Actually, this is not a rare situation. One-piece designs in girls' clothes are quite common. They must be worn when going to the bathroom. Taking them all off can solve that physical problem. It's really anti-human. Lu Chang'an thought about it carefully. Apart from some special equipment, he had never worn daily clothes like this. He thought of Li Hongfang's battle suit. Although it was also one piece, it was much more convenient than Nuan's. After all, her suit could remove certain parts of the suit separately. Interesting, Lu Chang'an concluded. Next time I buy a couple's onesie, we can wear it together, and Nuan said expectantly. I refuse. Lu Chang'an quickly tried to dispel her expectations. Thinking about the couple's pajamas she bought that looked like prison uniforms, the ugly red slippers, mink underwear, etc., Lu Chang'an knew that she would definitely not just talk about it. I must really want to wear it with Lu Chang'an. If you want, wear it with me, and Nuan coquettishly whispered in his ear, while searching for men's jumpsuits to show Lu Chang'an. Unless I die. Lu Chang'an glanced at him. It was really eye-catching, but he could recommend it to Zhu Ni, whose fellow beasts working in the women's club may be of use. Humph, then I'll change into other couple-style clothes for you to wear. Just wear something normal. I am an ordinary person with ordinary appearance, personality, and outlook. I am neither boring nor coquettish. Keep this in mind before choosing clothes for me, Lu Chang'an reminded An Nuan carefully. Know it? While An Nuan was choosing clothes on the website, she showed them to Lu Chang'an. The two of them talked about whether this one looked good or not, which style suited An Nuan, and what Lu Chang'an would wear better. They returned to the door. An Nuan slid off Lu Chang'an's back, letting him feel the girl's body curves, and then opened the door. Lu Yuwang and Professor Ling were practicing belly dancing at home. Both of them were wearing typical belly dancer costumes, with a rhinestone bra top and a wavy skirt underneath. The characteristic of this kind of skirt is that it exposes the entire leg to a little bit below the belly button, so it is usually paired with underwear and safety pants to prevent exposure. Just because they were at home and not performing in public, neither Professor Ling nor Lu Yuwang changed into safety pants. Lao Lu also said that you have to wait for a while. Professor Ling has sufficient experience in stage performances, but he responded generously. He just grabbed the edge of the skirt and tightened it. He had a gentle and natural smile of a mature woman on his face. Feeling embarrassed, Lu Yuwang's cheeks were slightly red, but she didn't say anything and hurried back to her room to change clothes. Chang'an knows everything. He should find an opportunity to teach our dance. I feel that I have hit a bottleneck recently. I haven't had the feeling of obvious improvement for a long time. Professor Ling looked at Lu Chang'an and said, his expression returned to his natural state. She felt that Lu Yuwang, it's a bit silly. You are facing a junior and you are wearing a performance costume. Why are you in such a hurry? Like a shy girl, a little artificial. He doesn't understand anything, and Nuan quickly pushed Lu Chang'an into her room. Professor Ling didn't want to teach Professor Lu how to dance. Because Professor Lu likes to dance, and Nuan has already done some research. Many long-term dance partners are basically lovers and couples, or they have had more or less ambiguous pasts. Even in the square dance circle, they often dance together. Old men and women are also a mess, often embarrassing their children. I don't have a big belly, so what do I know about belly dancing? Lu Chang'an smiled and was pushed into the room by An Nuan. However, after taking a few glances just now, Professor Ling's dancing level seemed a bit professional, so she felt that it would be difficult to break through when encountering bottlenecks. Professor Liu's dance was beautiful, but in Lu Chang'an's opinion, it was still a bit unreliable. Professor Ling's figure is also more suitable for this kind of dance. The waist and abdomen are slightly plump but not fat. Professor Liu's waist is too slender and soft, and does not have the feeling of Professor Ling. I went back to change clothes. Lao Lu said we would have dinner together in the evening. It seemed to be some kind of private restaurant, Professor Ling said to An Nuan. Okay. Lu Chang'an also said that the quality of the restaurant will definitely not be as good as his. An Nuan quickly picked up Professor Ling's windbreaker from the sofa and put it on her. I don't think he is bragging. If he can catch up with Lu Chang'an's level, he can go to Beijing, Shanghai, and Guangzhou to develop and open some private restaurant in Juncha. Professor Ling's living standard is not low, and he has tasted the taste of many famous chefs. Still impressed by Lu Chang'an's craftsmanship, Professor Ling went back to change clothes, and Lu Yuwang changed quickly. She was ready to fix her hair before going out. She remembered that Lu Chang'an said that he would do that kind of complicated hairstyle, and it probably wouldn't take long, but Lu Chang'an Yuang no longer dares to make such a request. The jealous person in the family is a bit too annoying. When An Nuan is not at home and Lu Chang'an has time, he can let him try his hand. At most, he can just let An Nuan say that he did it outside. Presumably Lu Chang'an will not be stupid and report the truth. Not necessarily. Lu Chang'an was like a licking dog in front of An Nuan. Professor Lu, I heard that you are good at dancing before, but I feel that you are like a mantis boxing today, Lu Chang'an said with some regret. An Nuan couldn't help laughing. What did you say? Lu Yuang was furious. This was the first time she heard someone commenting on her like this. Lu Chang'an just hopes that she can understand herself correctly. For a woman like Professor Lu, even if she twists and turns like Zhou Dongdong, many people will praise her. Over time, she will lose her self-awareness. She needs Lu Chang'an's direct remonstrance. Only by knowing your true level can you hope to improve yourself. This isn't even mantis boxing. To be honest, mantis boxing is a very beautiful and harmonious boxing technique, but mantis boxing. Before Lu Chang'an finished speaking, Lu Yuang had already raised his hand to hit someone. Mom, Professor Ling just said that Lu Chang'an knows everything and can give him guidance. Are you a better dancer than Professor Ling? Are you still humbly accepting advice? And Nuan quickly stood in front of Lu Chang'an. If Lu Yuang was holding a bicycle chain in his hand, it would be Lu Chang'an standing in front of him. Normally, of course, I would stand in front of him. I'm so angry. Lu Yuang sat down angrily, arranging his hair with a comb while glaring at An Nuan. You idiot, he said that I dance like a mantis punching, so in his eyes, you dance like what? Think again, do you have any classmates who dance well? An Nuan realized immediately. When she and Professor Lu talked about the objects she was wary of, she mentioned Bai Hui many times. Lu Yuang also knew a little about Bai Hui, especially when she went to the auto show. Bai Hui was a guest poster at the comic show. It also aroused the admiration of Lu Yuang and Professor Ling. Professor Lu, how could you do this? Lu Chang'an patted his head. How could he offend a woman like Lu Yuang? I have always known that she is not big-minded. Lu Yuang turned her head and gave Lu Chang'an a side look, but she couldn't help but curl up the corners of her mouth. She quickly raised her hand to cover her mouth, snorted and turned away completely. Dare you say she danced like a mantis punching? Then let An Nuan punch you. What were you implying just now? Although she knew Lu Yuang was trying to sow discord, An Nuan had no choice but to fall into the trap and looked at Lu Chang'an suspiciously. You dance like a mantis punching, and white anise dances like a white bear dancing wildly. How could Lu Chang'an succumb to An Nuan's boxing skills? He insisted. An Nuan thought about it for a while. On the surface, she seemed to be fighting 50 big games each, but she didn't like her. Seeing that she was his girlfriend, he didn't favor her. What's more, the white bear's dancing sounded much better than the mantis's boxing. The praying mantis is ugly, but the white bear is still very good looking, especially the little white bear, who is as cute as a stuffed dumpling. No, she's a white pig. Okay, the white pig is dancing wildly. Lu Chang'an couldn't help but laugh. He remembered that Zhu Huntang once called the white fennel the little white pig. In fact, it was quite vivid. The white fennel is white, round. Let's go outside and wait for Professor Ling. Isn't it normal for An Nuan to appear on Valentine's Day? All kinds of requests. I wish you all a great Valentine's Day in the year of the ox. I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 836. Professor Ling changed into a black windbreaker, a short skirt that covered her hips, and high leather boots. Because she was required to drive, the high boots were also flat. It seems that it was a deliberate match. Lu Yuang wore a short windbreaker of the same brand and design style as Professor Ling. Below it was a midi skirt that pressed down on the knees, and a pair of cowhide high-top shoes. The two even wore the same hair accessories and earrings. And Nuan was a little envious of this kind of sisterly style for going out on the street, so she blamed Hans Hizzy for traveling so far away to go to school in Zhonghai, and then turned her attention to Lu Chang'an. It would be nice to wear couple clothes with Lu Chang'an. You must look good in women's clothes. Just as she was thinking about couple clothes, and Nuan thought about sister clothes. She couldn't wear sister clothes with Hans Hizzy, but she could also find a way to make Lu Chang'an wear women's clothes to fulfill her little wish. As soon as Nuan finished speaking, Professor Ling and Lu Yuang, who were sitting in the front row, looked back at Lu Chang'an. Lu Chang'an frowned. What was going on with the eyes and expressions of these two middle-aged women? They looked full of expectation. Aren't young people meddling in topics like women's clothing? Why are you two joining in the fun? If Lu Chang'an were to wear women's clothing, he would definitely look like a supermodel with a frigid style, Professor Ling said expectantly. And Nuan nodded vigorously, and she thought so too. To put it in human terms, this frigid style means wearing a more neutral style that does not deliberately highlight the charm of a female figure. To put it nicely, it is simple, comfortable, and elegant. Just like Professor Ling and Lu Yuang today, they changed the skirts under their windbreakers into trousers, jeans, wide-leg pants, etc., and put their high boots on. If they change to white shoes, dad shoes, or the like, then they will become frigid. However, women like Professor Ling and Lu Yuang cannot look cold even if they are dressed like this. Men still look very hot when they see them. Can't he be cute? I want to see him wear that, the clothes that the girl named Zhu Huntang wears every day. Lu Yuang had a different idea. Zhu Huntang is well known in Hunan University. There are many girls in school who wear low skirts in a cute style. The most eye-catching one is Zhu Huntang. No one has as many as her, and they don't wear them every day like her. Even if they are by Hui counted carefully and found that the number of days she wore low skirts each month was not large. Because there are also Hanfu, JK, and other styles waiting for her to be favored. And Nuan's mind pictured Lu Chang'an wearing a cute little skirt, her long legs wrapped in white silk, and her feet wearing Baroque carved women's shoes, and she couldn't help but laugh out loud. The carriage was suddenly filled with a cheerful atmosphere. Lu Chang'an's face was expressionless. Women are so forgetful, especially Professor Ling and Lu Yuang. They no longer remember the fear of being dominated by him in the hotel last year. And Nuan forget it, he often uses the rhythm of fast, crazy, not, huge, phase, to, fight, able. To teach him. Drive quickly, I'm hungry. Lu Chang'an did not participate in this kind of topic. When women start to be bored and look for trouble, this kind of topic can arouse their further interest and excitement even if they express resistance. The most suitable attitude is to be direct ignore. Professor Ling smacked his lips, feeling a little regretful that this matter could not be realized. Lu Yuang glanced at Lu Chang'an a few more times, and then patted Professor Ling on the shoulder. The two middle-aged women looked at each other and smiled at each other, both feeling amused and regretful. The car soon drove to the private restaurant Lu Yuang mentioned. Unexpectedly, the private restaurant is located halfway up Lushan Mountain. It is adjacent to the valley and opposite the abandoned wedding photo studio where Lu Chang'an once made two-color meatballs. The location of the private restaurant is a bit remote, but fortunately it can be reached directly by car. Behind it is the lush woods on the Lushan Mountain, and in front are plantations of various roses. Farther away, there is a glass house like a white sail on the water, which is quite artistic. The restaurant has 2 floors, with white plaster walls. The windows are also in the wooden frame style common in the last century. They are inlaid with pieces of glass. The window grills and the Chinese characters Fu posted during the New Year are still brightly colored. Lu Chang'an's sharp eyes saw a black hunky L5 parked at the corner of the small building, where there was a circular arch leading directly into the restaurant. There is still a national flag on the front of the car. Even Qinyan's nominal father would not put on such a show, and he is even a little afraid. The one who would do this is undoubtedly Zhu Huntang. There is also a large loaf-shaped nanny car standing outside the hunky car, which blocks most of the hunky L5 body, and other people did not see it. Considering that everyone in his group, except Lu Chang'an himself, Professor Lu, Professor Ling and others were not familiar with Zhu Huntang, and An Nuan only had limited contact with him, Lu Chang'an felt that there was no need to say hello to everyone. Everyone had their own food, and went home after eating. Give birth to babies while sleeping. Zhu Huntang would not come to any private restaurant alone, and he would definitely be accompanied by Qinyan or Bai Hui. The waiter who greeted us was a tall and thin young man. After being seated, he said apologetically, "Ms. Lu, I'm very sorry. There is an extra table of guests today, so the food service will be a little slow. Please understand." One time. Don't we usually only receive 2 tables of guests? Lu Yuwang asked strangely. Whether it is for quality control, hunger marketing, or improving style, this kind of private restaurant is basically not like an ordinary restaurant. Always entertained. Some even have no business, but they still have to limit the number of guests and make reservations several days in advance to maintain the aloof and glamorous image of the restaurant. There are quite a few people using this method, and it is very effective to use it, so why not do it? Today is a special situation. A new table has been added, the young man explained with a smile. What's so special? I made a reservation 10 days in advance. Lu Yuwang felt unhappy and a little unconvinced. He had to wait in line for 10 days, but others could temporarily jump in. Although Lu Yuwang's reservation time was not squeezed out, if I usually serve 2 tables, I suddenly serve 3 tables today. Can I guarantee the service and quality I receive? Ms. Lu, there is really no way around this. Please understand that there is one guest at that table who is an acquaintance of our chef and must be given face. The young man bowed and continued to apologize. We must follow the usual specifications and quality, provide you with the ultimate delicious food, and at the same time give you a 20% discount. That's okay. You've already come, can you still leave? Professor Ling signaled to Lu Yuwang that there was no need to worry too much. And Nuan also nodded. In fact, it can be seen that there is really nothing the restaurant can do, not to mention that it is impossible to discount at this kind of place, and 20% off is considered very sincere. Lu Chang'an has always been a good talker. As long as others tell the truth, he will not care about it in this situation, and he will do whatever he wants. Well, it's still a human society. Guangzai is so good. You have to talk about human relationships when eating. Lu Yuwang sighed while looking at the surrounding environment. This inspection diverted Lu Yuwang's attention. The decoration design was obviously very careful. The overall style of the tables and chairs tended to be Ming Dynasty home style, so Lu Yuwang chatted with Lu Chang'an about Ming-style furniture. Lu Yuwang, I'm not too fond of large Ming-style furniture items such as seats, screens, beds, and curio cabinets, but I like tables and chairs very much. And Nuan couldn't get involved in this topic, but she didn't stop her mother from talking to Lu Chang'an at all times. She just paid careful attention to the atmosphere of their chat, as long as it stayed within the scope of an objective discussion, and did not get into it as if she had found it. And Nuan let them go in an atmosphere of congeniality like a close friend. This is also a good standard that a girlfriend must grasp. Indulging in indulgence can easily cause trouble, and taking too much control can be annoying. On this point, and Nuan feels that she has a good grasp of it. Professor Ling took a look at today's menu signed by the chef and couldn't help but touch his belly. It felt so light. Since that experience of returning to youth, Professor Ling found that his metabolism was relatively strong and he was less likely to accumulate fat. Losing weight has become quite easy, but to maintain her current figure, she needs to eat more. The food was served in a short while, and the service was not reduced because of the extra guests at the table. The appetizers were pickled papaya and salt and pepper river shrimp, and the stomach-warming soup was pine mushroom chicken soup, which were all at normal standards. It's good to try Cantonese food occasionally, Professor Ling said to Lu Yuwang, and planned to order some dry fried beef river to fill his stomach after eating. The 20% discount is more cost-effective. Lu Yuwang no longer cares about the problem that he has to queue up while others can come at any time, not to mention that he has a 20% discount, which makes him feel a little flattered. Lu Yuwang chose the price of 3,888 for 4 people. Plus a 10% service fee. It originally cost more than 4,000, but now it only costs about 3,500, which is a good deal. This price is basically the same as the high-end private restaurants in Guangdong. Professor Ling also said that the price is not bad, but it is a bit regretful. In fact, if Lu Chang'an stayed at An Nuan's house tonight, he could have a late-night snack. Today let's sleep in His room tonight. An Nuan was busy taking photos of every dish that was served, and gave half of her crispy sea cucumber to Lu Chang'an. She was a little confused because it was said that men eat sea cucumbers to complement their shapes, but sea cucumbers are soft and soft. This seems a bit inappropriate for men to eat, right? Thinking of this, An Nuan chuckled twice. Lu Chang'an glanced at her and knew that she was thinking about something dirty again. He couldn't help but shook his head. An Nuan was just a fake, with a lot of dirty things in his mind. I have accumulated a lot of theories about my brain, but the actual operation depends entirely on Lu Chang'an's education. Fortunately, she can study hard and cooperate actively. One is willing to teach and the other likes to learn. At this time, there was a knock on the door. After Lu Yuwang said come in, the person who came in was not the waiter who added tea and removed the plates, but Qin Yinan. Lu Yuwang and Professor Ling looked at each other, and it seemed that the person in front of them was the one who had temporarily joined the group. The university campus is a very suitable place for spreading gossip, especially some female teachers who basically have money and time, and have a lot of free time. The idea that Qin Yinan has a good background has long been spread, and both Lu Yuwang and Professor Ling have heard about it. Professor Lu, Professor Ling, what a coincidence. Just now the waiter came in to serve the food. I was passing by and heard voices that sounded like acquaintances talking. I didn't expect it was you, Qin Yinan said with a smile. An Nuan, we had dinner together last time. It seems we are still in the cafeteria. When will Chang'an and I come to my house for dinner? No, the last time we had dinner together was at your house. We also spent the night and took a bath in the hot spring. An Nuan smiled slightly. Qin Yinan actually stood behind Lu Chang'an and put her fingers gently on Lu Chang'an's shoulders, looking extremely close. An Nuan, I have to remind you that day Lu Chang'an went to deliver wild boar meat, and he went with him and stayed at Qin Yinan's house. This woman also had a suspected air leak. Qin Yinan's cheeks were slightly hot. It was indeed embarrassing that day, but she was not without victory. It was also on that day that she used her strongest capital to crush An Nuan, leaving a shadow like a snow mountain in the little girl's heart. Lu Yuwang and Professor Ling also greeted Qin Yinan. Qin Yinan asked Lu Chang'an to remember to go over and say hello, and then left the box. This kind of private restaurant only serves dishes according to the menu. Each person has one portion and each has his own food. The portions are not large. Unlike ordinary restaurants where you just add a pair of bowls and chopsticks to the big table so that people can sit down together. Eat something, so it is not convenient to retain Qin Yinan. Lu Chang'an turned his head and took a look, and found that An Nuan showed some unconvinced expression after snorting. I didn't perform well just now. All kinds of hints, taunts, accusations, guns and sticks were not used. Qin Yinan was a sudden attack, and An Nuan was not prepared for her. The main reason is that An Nuan is usually thinking about various responses when meeting Bai Hui, and neglects Qin Yinan. Even if you suddenly meet her and say hello, How many moves do you want to make with her? Lu Chang'an shook his head. And Nuan felt that she was even more at a disadvantage. Yes, she met him suddenly, but Qin Yanan knew that Nuan was inside when she heard people talking outside the door just now, so what Qin Yanan said after coming in, her tone and little movements must have been hers. It was well designed, especially the action of putting his finger on Lu Chang'an's shoulder. It must have been a provocation to Nuan. As for the fact that the last time they had dinner together seemed to be in the cafeteria, Qin Yanan said this deliberately. Qin Yanan refused to say that the last time they had dinner together was when Lu Chang'an went to deliver wild boar meat, because Qin Yanan made a fool of himself that day due to a flat tire. Why did she say it was the time we ate together in the cafeteria? Because after dinner that day, Nuan got the news that Qin Yanan almost became Lu Chang'an's fiancé. Although Lu Chang'an revealed this matter to Nuan, and it was not Qin Yanan who launched the nuclear strike against Nuan that day, how could he blame Lu Chang'an? Isn't it the position that a girlfriend should have to blame all the mistakes on others? Basic awareness. You stinky girl, what are you talking about? Lu Yuwang heard clearly what Nuan said, and she also knew that Qin Yanan was also the target of Nuan's vigilance, and her vigilance was as high as that of her mother and Bai Hui. Although Qin Yanan is Lu Chang'an's cousin, Lu Yuwang is still her mother, isn't she vigilant? Therefore, the cousin's identity has no protection at all. Tell me the restaurant you chose is good, and Nuan continued to eat. This must be the tacit understanding between middle-aged women. Mom likes it here, and Qin Yanan also likes it here. After a while, Lu Chang'an had almost finished eating, so he went to the box where Qin Yanan was sitting. There was a waiter and Zhu Huntang's baker standing at the door of the box. When the waiter asked if Lu Chang'an was an acquaintance, the baker opened the door of the box respectfully. This box is much larger than the one Lu Chang'an eats in, and the people sitting in it also have much larger appetites. They are Qin Yanan, Shang Guandandan, Zhou Dongdong, and Zhu Huntang. Shang Guandandan and Zhou Dongdong are the main ones when it comes to eating. Zhu Huntang, don't you eat in restaurants outside? Lu Chang'an sent Zhu Huntang away after class today, but he didn't expect to meet her. Oh, Yaya told me to eat out at night, so I asked Jin Xiaomei to contact the restaurant and have my people professionally disinfect and clean the kitchen, replace it with new kitchen utensils and tableware, and 2 of my people are supervising the kitchen. Hygiene. Zhu Huntang frowned and said with some emotion, these are all compromises and a little sacrifice I made to accompany Dandan and Dongdong to eat together. Maybe I will have a stomachache tonight. Lu Chang'an didn't want to pay attention to her. He sat next to Qin Yanan and looked at Shang Guandandan and Zhou Dongdong who were eating and drinking around. Zhou Dongdong was fine. He had always been a round child, but he glared when he saw bulging cheeks. His Shang Guan was indifferent, but why did he feel that the Queen Mother was gradually becoming more mellow? Hello everyone, I have released a new book. My mom takes me to cultivation as immortality, which has been put into the library. Everyone is welcome to collect and read it. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 838. Different from the private dining room where Lu Yuwang ordered, the way of eating here is not a sharing system, but like an ordinary restaurant, one large portion is served, instead of single portions the size of soy sauce plates. For example, the dish crispy sea cucumber that Lu Chang'an had just eaten was only a thin slice per person, but here it was filled with a plate as big as a fish head with chopped peppers. As for the foie gras fried rice, it's more realistic. It's really the size of an ice cream ball over there, but it's a bowl here. No wonder Shang Guandandan's cheeks were bulging even though he was eating. Needless to say, she was holding her owl and glaring at him without saying a word because she was already controlled by food. Just pinch her cheeks, and you can directly break through the superficial elegance that she strives to maintain, revealing a mouthful of sea cucumber, beef, foie gras, shrimp, and other things. As if sensing Lu Chang'an's impending move, Shang Guandandan's eyes widened and he became even more majestic and inviolable. "Brother Chang'an, come and eat." Zhou Dongdong jumped down from his seat and ran to Lu Chang'an's side. "I'm already full, but I can still eat a little with you." "Forget it when you're full. I don't need you to accompany me, so don't eat." Lu Chang'an took a pair of chopsticks, picked up a piece of spicy beef and started eating. Zhou Dongdong opened his mouth and looked up at Lu Chang'an, his eyes following the process of his chopsticks from picking up vegetables to stuffing them into his mouth. Lu Chang'an smiled and fed Zhou Dongdong the second chopstick. Zhou Dongdong came over to him with satisfaction, crawled into his arms and sat down. Lu Chang'an touched her belly and felt that she had almost eaten. As for what she could eat a little bit, he felt that as long as she fed it by herself, she could keep eating. Just like many dogs, as long as you feed it, it will keep eating. If you put more than the amount of dog food, it can even stretch itself to death. At this point, cats are much smarter. If you put a big bowl, it will eat it every time. I only eat a little every time. Considering that Zhou Dongdong often barks, and many of his movements, habits, and expressions are similar to those of a dog, it is understandable. It seems that Professor Lu has completely regarded you as his son-in-law, and I will take you with me to all these dinners. Qin Yinan is very happy for Lu Chang'an. This is great. As a sister, can you not be happy for your brother? So he poured him a cup of tea. Zhu Huntang nodded vigorously, always wanting to say something to help Qin Yan and taunt Lu Chang'an, but he felt that even if Dandan was there, he would be beaten, so he would just shout twice to cheer Qin Yanan. Shang Guandandan touched the owl and asked Lu Chang'an to look at her eyes. After the two met their eyes, he felt that Lu Chang'an could not understand the meaning of her eyes, so he took out his mobile phone and wrote a line for Lu Chang'an to read. "Go back to bed tonight and be careful not to get pregnant due to Professor Liu's induction." Lu Chang'an nodded, but this was not directed at the words written by Shang Guandandan. He was just lamenting that the handwriting recognition rate of the input method is really high now. Most of what Shang Guandandan wrote was Hanli, and some were even cursive. This can also be recognized. Shang Guandandan, like many middle-aged and elderly people, cannot use pinyin input method and prefers to write by hand. What does this mean? Qin Yanan couldn't help but become nervous. Qin Yanan had told Zhu Huntang before that she was the chosen one. Not whoever came into contact with Lu Chang'an would be able to get pregnant. Over the years, his brother had had countless women, but she and Su Mei were the only ones who were really pregnant. At that time, Zhu Huntang was worried that she would have a baby and would no longer be a little fairy. Qin Yanan did not take it seriously and despised Zhu Huntang. It is definitely impossible for ordinary people to achieve pregnancy through induction, but Shang Guandandan specifically pointed out that Lu Yuwang should be careful, so he had to pay attention to it. Lu Yuwang is an extraordinary woman. How can an ordinary woman be 40 or 50 years old and still be the same as her daughter and sisters? Isn't this a monster? Qin Yanan felt that she was right about her age. Normally and in gossip, the female teachers would say that Lu Yuwang's beauty skills were incredible. At this time, they would tell Lu Yuwang's true age, and Qin Yanan also knew it. But 37, isn't it almost 40? What's wrong with a 40-year-old woman saying she's 40 or 50? In the era when there was no delayed retirement, people could retire in their 40s or 50s. Retirement is basically the seniority of grandparents. Now that Shang Guandandan specifically singled out Lu Yuwang, there must be something wrong. After all, Shang Guandandan is very unusual. She has great prestige in Qinyanan's heart. Otherwise, how could Qinyanan lick the Queen Mother when she has nothing to do? I shouldn't have come here. Seeing Qinyanan's nervous look, as if a concubine in the harem was pregnant with a dragon child, and suddenly heard that other concubines were also pregnant, and his son's position as prince was no longer secure, Lu Chang'an sighed with emotion. Where would he find the throne for the prince to inherit now? Even if there was, he was deposed by Shang Guandandan back then. If he wanted to retain the throne and protect the crown prince, he went to Shang Guandandan. Zhu Huntang quickly tilted his head. Shang Guandandan turned his cell phone and glanced at Zhu Huntang as well. If you don't want to turn into mutton kebabs, stop talking. Seeing Zhu Huntang's stupid look, Lu Chang'an immediately threatened. The last thing he wanted to hear here was Zhu Huntang's speech. This leaky little cotton-padded jacket always made Lu Chang'an feel cold and completely chilled whenever he spoke. Zhu Huntang's words were about to blurt out, and she finally pursed her lips tightly before leaving her mouth. The words seemed to turn into gas, struggling to hit her mouth, making her cheeks bulge, and she had to grit her teeth tightly. Took several deep breaths before holding them in forcibly. If it were just him and Lu Chang'an, or if there was one more Qinyanan, he would definitely not have to work so hard. If he said it, he would be spanked, his saliva would be applied to heal the injury, and his butt would become beautiful again. Such a gesture would be equivalent to him kissing his own butt to express his allegiance. It's just a process. But now that there are so many people, if the old man becomes angry and angry, he will most likely enter a bloodthirsty massacre state. It is also entirely possible to turn Zhu Huntang into mutton skewers. With his cruel and ruthless style, Zhu Huntang had to be on guard, so he hid behind Shang Guandandan and grabbed Shang Guandandan's shoulders to completely block her. Lu Chang'an was too lazy to pay attention to her. This Zhu Huntang was usually very cute in front of Shang Guandandan. When there was danger, he first captured Shang Guandandan as a shield. This was the only clever thing about him. What exactly does it mean, pregnancy by induction? Is it the way I understand it, where you might get pregnant if you are close to you? Qinyanan spoke carefully, crying with some fear, her voice was slightly hoarse, still, or have you and her, already? You're already the same size. Lu Chang'an waved his hand, frowning and analyzing why Shang Guandandan suddenly said that. He didn't stay at Lu Yuwang's house many times. Under normal circumstances, if he didn't sleep at home, Shang Guandandan had no idea where he would spend the night. He might be at the top of Lushan Mountain, at Lu Yuwang's house, or in a bridge cave, in the river, on the roof of a building, or some such place. If he did not go home for the night and Lu Yuwang became pregnant due to induction, it must be because he did not go home for the night one night. Shang Guandandan met Lu Yuwang that night or the next morning. Indeed, there were 2 times when he stayed at Lu Yuwang's home. Lu Yuwang was already accustomed to staying in the hotel in Bailong Center. Shang Guandandan took Zhou Dongdong to walk around there when he had nothing to do. The coercive and elegant Queen Mother, just like cats and dogs, they are accustomed to wandering around their familiar territory and generally do not go elsewhere for fear of strangers. Even if she is not afraid of strangers, she will not run far because she has not yet learned to ride her electric pony carriage and she has no strength to walk. Lu Yuwang met Shang Guandandan. With Lu Yuwang's innocence, it was too normal for Shang Guandandan to trick her into buying breakfast and food for her. By the way, it was too normal for Shang Guandandan to trick Lu Yuwang out of the hotel. Simple. No one can escape Shang Guandandan's tricks, only Lu Chang'an's wit can do it. Lu Yuwang would not come to the conclusion of pregnancy through induction on his own. Only Shang Guandandan would make such a judgment that goes against modern common sense. So what did Lu Yuwang say that made Shang Guandandan come to this conclusion? It is most likely related to the reason why she stayed in a hotel away from home. Induction, I understand, I can't stay at An Nuan's house tonight. Lu Chang'an deduced the reason smoothly and silently put Zhou Dongdong in Qin Yinan's arms to suppress him. It's not what you think. I will go back to sleep tonight and eat your food. Goodbye. After Lu Chang'an finished speaking, he walked out of the room. It seemed that he and An Nuan had disturbed Professor Liu's sleep. Haha, that was the reason. Nothing else. There was really no other reason, that's all. Watching Lu Chang'an walk out, Zhu Huntang took a long breath and said immediately, I understand, An Nuan must be pregnant. As a pregnant woman, there is no way for the old man to sleep with him. He will be inhumane and disobey the principles. Right, Professor Liu is cheating, Dandan is warning him to be a better person, right. Qin Yinan opened her mouth. Even her best friend for many years couldn't understand Zhu Huntang's brain circuit. How did she understand it? Qin Yinan looked at Zhu Huntang angrily, you'd better turn into mutton skewers sooner or later. Qin Yinan breathed a sigh of relief. Although he still didn't understand what was going on, his brother and Professor Liu were definitely innocent, and he wouldn't, and if there was something true, he would definitely not deny it. Shang Guan Dandan touched the owl and poured out a glass of champagne water. The champagne water was delicious, as expected of my moth. He knew the elegant meaning of the string song and understood everything. Please support my new book My Mom Takes Me to Cultivate Immortality. The protagonist is Dong Dong. Give Dong Dong some face. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 839. Because he was suppressed by Zhou Dongdong, Qin Yinan could not get up, so he had to feed Zhou Dongdong while complaining to Zhu Huntang. Zhu Huntang, don't you claim to be an emotional support expert? I don't think it has any positive effect at all. Qin Yinan remembered that Zhu Huntang once invited two emotional support experts in Taiwan to try to provide support, but after being discovered by Lu Chang'an, he had to withdraw. Zhu Huntang himself served as an emotional support expert, that is, a sheep-headed strategist, but Qin Yinan never felt that he had received her help. How could it be? If I hadn't come to you for dinner today, I wouldn't have come here, and I wouldn't have met Lu Chang. And Zhu Huntang felt that Qin Yinan was simply ungrateful. She had made such a huge sacrifice, and in such a simple and cheap fly-eat in a restaurant. Thinking of this, Zhu Huntang felt a dull pain in his stomach. Yeah, after I met him, I called him over and you pissed him off, Qin Yinan said dissatisfied. Especially now that the two armies are confronting each other in the air, Lu Chang'an ran over to say hello, only to be angered. This would create a clear contrast for him, and he thought it would be more comfortable to stay within Nuan's group of people. If this happens a few times, a subconscious feeling will form, Anuan equals comfortable, Qin Yinan equals uncomfortable. Zhu Huntang was stunned. Why is this pregnant woman so unreasonable? It was Dandan who exposed Lu Chang'an's unethical intentions, causing him to become so angry that he hid his face and ran away. What does this have to do with Zhu Huntang? Zhu Huntang frowned, but he still understood. Qin Yinan didn't dare to talk about Dandan, so he had to target the gentle, lovely, and harmless Biba. Women, are so cute and pitiful. Zhu Huntang deeply sympathizes with what Qin Yinan has become. She has become a complete love-brained pregnant woman and has completely lost the wit she once had. It doesn't matter. Shang Guan Dandan, who was freed from control, looked at Qin Yinan gently. The mother is more valuable than the son, which is an eternal truth. What's more, he has great expectations for little Mai now, so you don't have to worry. It's Lu Chan. Qin Yinan corrected with some embarrassment. This name is really difficult to write. Lu Qian will definitely be very dissatisfied with you after he goes to school. Zhu Huntang felt a headache just reading this word. It is very likely that it will be time for the exam in the future. Lu Qian wasted time writing the name. The invalidation of test results has affected her life. When she looks back on her life sadly, she may never understand, why did my parents give me this name? Ah, if they hadn't given me such a name in the first place, wouldn't my life have been the same? Is it different? Qin Yanan touched her belly and found that it was Zhou Dongdong's, but it felt more like a pregnant woman. What Zhu Huntang said is a bit exaggerated, but it is not unreasonable. There are only exams that can affect life, namely the high school entrance examination, college entrance examination, and national examination. Qin Yanan thought of this and ignored Zhu Huntang's nonsense. Lu Yushuan is the child of Qin Yanan and Lu Chang'an. What exam can affect her life? Don't worry, you can still call him Lu Qianqian. Really, I was almost disturbed by Zhu Huntang. When Lu Chang'an returned to the box, and Nuan was satisfied when he saw him leaving as quickly as possible and not being seduced by the lust over there. Although there is also Professor Lu here who has a vague pinkish aura, this is ultimately an internal conflict, which is absolutely different from the conflict between ourselves and the enemy from the outside. Drink tea. And Nuan brought Lu Chang'an a cup of tea as a reward. If her mother and Professor Ling weren't present, and Nuan could even kiss him again, and it wouldn't matter if he did something shameful and exciting here. Lu Chang'an drank tea without looking at Lu Yuang. What happened in Qin Yanan's box just now had no impact on him and would not disturb his mood. Of course, he would not deliberately stare at Lu Yuang. Teacher Qin has a really good figure. I want to invite her to join our belly dance club. Professor Ling looked at Lu Chang'an expectantly. Chang'an, can you tell her this for me? No problem. Lu Chang'an nodded. Qin Yanan really needed to find something to do. In the past, when he had nothing to do, he would play with Zhu Huntang and wander around. Now he sits on the top of Lushan Mountain all day long, looking like he is raising his baby with peace of mind. Makes people anxious. When she joins our club, Lao Ling, you can talk to her and ask her to help us buy rice cookers as a group, Lu Yuang also said with some anticipation. Although there was some vague disagreement with Qin Yanan, Professor Lu was a rational and realistic person after all. How could a little competition between women be as important as the discounts obtained from group purchases of rice cookers? Professor Ling smiled. In fact, she also had such thoughts. Lu Yuang told Professor Ling last year that Qin Yanan was very well connected and could get big discounts in shopping malls. And Nuan found it incredible, staring at Lu Yuang with wide eyes. Mom, it's been almost a year, and you're still thinking about the rice cooker. Remembering that it was the day Qin Yanan took the key to show off in front of Nuan, Lu Yuang kept talking about how Qin Yanan bought Lu Chang'an a rice cooker that was several thousand yuan cheaper than the regular price. Lu Yuang snorted, this is a woman who knows how to live. How can this little girl understand that family life is such a shrewd calculation? Because she didn't want to meet the people there again, and Nuan urged her to leave. After getting in the car, Lu Yuang said, Old Ling, it's still early. Let's go shopping in Hedong. There is a pair of shoes that I must buy today. Okay, then I'll stop by Daoxiang to eat fried beef. Professor Ling had no objection, and then looked back at Lu Chang'an. Lu Chang'an stretched out and hugged Nuan, then let me down at Wei Road. I won't go shopping with you when I go home. It's okay. We won't buy too many things today. We'll call you when we need labor. Lu Yuang glanced at Nuan. Professor Ling frowned. Did Lu Yuang do it on purpose? She should be talking about workers, but it sounds the same as husband. Under normal circumstances, the word coolie is usually used. The word laborer is not commonly used. Maybe Lu Yuang is deliberately trying to avoid Nuan. And Nuan's eyes wandered around the people in the car. Except for herself, Lu Chang'an, Lu Yuang, and even Professor Ling, there was a tacit understanding that was caused by something unknown. And Nuan began to think silently. This was a very uncomfortable phenomenon, but there was no way to ask. At the same time, all three of them now felt a sense of relief. Ah, how annoying. And Nuan buried her head in Lu Chang'an's chest and decided to investigate in detail next time she was alone with Lu Chang'an. Professor Ling sent Lu Chang'an directly to the gate of the community. As soon as Lu Chang'an got off the car, he met Zhou Shuling, who was returning home. Zhou Shuling waved hello to Lu Yuang and An Nuan in the car, and then walked back with Lu Chang'an. Why is it so early today? After visiting Xiongnan University, I was very impressed and decided to spend part of my time reading books every day to improve myself, Zhou Shuling said with emotion. Lu Chang'an nodded and said nothing more. Zhou Shuling did not go upstairs and went directly back to Lu Chang'an's house. She touched the electric heating table. Shang Guandandan and Zhou Dongdong went out in the afternoon. Zhou Dongdong should have turned off the electric heating table before leaving. Fortunately, no electricity was wasted. Zhou Shuling knew that Lu Chang'an always left the door open, and Shang Guandandan, who liked the electric radiator the most, never turned off the electric radiator. Lu Chang'an took the fruit from the refrigerator and went to the kitchen to clean and slice it. Zhou Shuling went to Lu Chang'an's computer desk and rummaged around, frowning. Yuan Ye, Ji Longwuji, Xiang Dian, Creation French Style, Suihuan Embroidery Manual and Common Techniques for Sheet Metal Cutting, what are these? Does he usually read such strange books? Zhou Shuling flipped through these books, and found that these books were full of vocabulary and sentences that Zhou Shuling would never come into contact with in her daily life. She suddenly felt like her head was being hit with bricks composed of these unfamiliar words. After searching around for a while, he finally found that the Book of Mountains and Seas he placed on the table seemed to be a picture book, so he took it out. Zhou Shuling took the book and returned to the electric heating table, cheering up and planning to read hard and improve herself. Lu Chang'an took out the fruit and watched TV and Zhou Shuling reading. Can you improve yourself by reading the classic of mountains and seas? Lu Chang'an thought that based on her taste, she would probably choose Success Studies, Chicken Soup for the Soul or Emotional Anthology to start. Although Lu Chang'an didn't think the classic of mountains and seas was a book suitable for her to improve herself, it was at least better than those books. Lu Chang'an watched TV for a while, turned around and pushed Zhou Shuling. Ah, I fell asleep. Zhou Shuling quickly sat up straight and rubbed her eyes. I want to read a book, to improve myself. Zhou Shuling placed the book on the electric heating table, sat upright, and stared at the pages carefully. But apart from pictures, why are there so many ancient texts? Can't he just buy a copy with a translation? Preferably the one with pinyin. Lu Chang'an counted silently in his mind. When he counted to 300 seconds, he turned around and found that Zhou Shuling had already fallen asleep on the book. He reached out and pulled out the book. Zhou Shuling was still alert in her sleep and snatched the book away as soon as she reached out. Return. But she didn't wake up, she still closed her eyes, just closed the book again, put it under her cheek more comfortably and continued to sleep. Improve yourself? Going to college? Are you confident in yourself? It would be impossible not to take her to plant 13 trees on Arbor Day. She must be the source of Zhou Dongdong's problem of wanting to sleep when he reads a book without pictures. She is even more extreme than Zhou Dongdong, and this book has pictures. Seeing her turning towards him, Lu Chang'an took a banana and stuffed it into her mouth. The banana was relatively soft and could not withstand her teeth, but to Lu Chang'an's surprise, she actually opened her mouth to hold the banana, and then took 2 bites before she woke up. Finding that she fell asleep again, and Lu Chang'an stuffed fruit into her mouth, Zhou Shuling blushed and took the banana and ate it. Maybe I didn't sleep well last night, and I didn't take a nap today. I was just too sleepy. Tomorrow, let's read again tomorrow. Then next time Zhou Dongdong says he is sleepy and doesn't want to do his homework, he will do it tomorrow. Do you agree? Lu Chang'an was not going to let her go. Zhou Shuling was stunned for a moment. Of course she couldn't agree to this. Lu Chang'an went to get a copy of Management, Principles and Methods and said, "Don't read the classic of mountains and seas, read this one. Today, let's take a look at the first section of the first chapter, Human Management Activities. Zhou Shuling took it. It was so heavy and big. She had never read such a thick and heavy book in her whole life, and she couldn't help but feel a little frightened. Just like when she was about to practice martial arts, the master took 2 sledgehammers and asked her to dance. After flipping through the first page, Zhou Shuling suddenly felt as if her brain had been hit by this book again. Not only was she drowsy, she even felt like she couldn't open her eyelids. But Lu Chang'an was watching her expressionlessly from the side, and Zhou Shuling couldn't help but feel a little aggrieved. Couldn't he just turn a blind eye like he usually did to Zhou Dongdong? Zhou Shuling clearly remembered that Zhou Dongdong always gave books to Lu Chang'an and asked Lu Chang'an to read stories to her. Then she fell asleep while eating in Lu Chang'an's arms. Lu Chang'an usually would not wake her up. He read his, "Let her sleep, her sleep. I'm really sleepy, I'll definitely read it tomorrow." After saying that, Zhou Shuling put down the book, looked at him and touched the edge of the electric heating table to get up. Taking advantage of Lu Chang'an not scolding her, she twisted her waist and hurriedly he ran out of the living room and went upstairs. "Please save my new book, my mom takes me to Cultivation of Immortality. It will be collected by 5,000 people soon. When it reaches 5,000 collections, I will immediately update I'm really immortal. Click on the book cover in the author's words to collect it. I'm really immortal." Author, Chulian Kuikan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 840. Lu Chang'an had no hope in Zhou Shuling's improving herself. He gave her management to read, just to speed up her self-awareness so that she would not continue to pretend to improve herself in front of him. All people are created equal, and IQ is even more so. Resources are also limited. Zhou Shuling has recently spent all her resources on the rational use of fat. She should eat a few more tons of lecithin. These added resources can increase her brain activity. I hope that her brain activity will increase. Of course, this is not to encourage her to improve herself, it's just that if her brain becomes more flexible, she will better realize that she has nothing to do with learning. Disgusting, Zhou Shuling sent him a message, just these 2 words. He smiled, put down the phone, and did not reply to her, but he actually did not say disgusting but replaced it with disgusting. His feminine taste was slightly reduced and his squeamishness was slightly increased. Lu Chang'an continued to watch TV, and he wanted to go upstairs to see if Zhou Shuling had any late-night snacks. The meal Professor Lu invited tonight was very suitable for a refined boy who pursues a sense of ritual, but not suitable for ordinary people like Lu Chang'an. 1 bite of sea cucumber, 1 bite of foie gras fried rice, just a few bites of several dishes. "Do you want to eat the fried beef river?" Zhou Shuling shouted from upstairs. "Aren't you sleepy?" Lu Chang'an shouted and couldn't help but laugh. He gets sleepy when he reads and wants to eat when he doesn't read. He is indeed Zhou Dongdong's mother. Zhou Shuling stopped talking, and after a while there was no sound from upstairs. Lu Chang'an quickly said, I eat, make me a portion too." Zhou Shuling still didn't reply to him, but after a while she came down with 2 portions of dry fried beef, gave him a look, and handed him the larger portion. Seeing him sitting still like an old man, Zhou Shuling hit him angrily, then went to the refrigerator and took out a bottle of orange juice, poured half a glass for herself, and left the rest to him. "There's so much beef in it." Lu Chang'an sighed with satisfaction. "Our living standards have improved significantly. I still remember the fried noodles you used to make. There was no meat in it, but a lot of bean sprouts. Then you eat delicious food too." The corner of Zhou Shuling's mouth curled up slightly, and she felt a little sweet when she remembered that everything he ate tasted delicious. At that time, Zhou Shuling could grow bean sprouts by herself and it didn't cost any money, so of course she put in more. Lu Chang'an nodded. Zhou Shuling's fried rice noodles and fried rice noodles are actually more delicious than the soup noodles she made, because fried noodles usually add more meat and less meat, and her inventive spirit in making soup noodles is not used. While eating noodles, Lu Chang'an put the book management on the table again. Zhou Shuling hit him and quickly pushed the big book away, seeing that the rice noodles in his mouth were no longer fragrant. While they were eating, Shang Guandandan and Zhou Dongdong came back. Zhou Dongdong dived under the electric heating table, then got out from the side next to the sofa, and squeezed in to sit between Zhou Shuling and Lu Chang'an. Dan Dan, do you want some more? I'll fry another one for you, Zhou Shuling asked hurriedly when she saw Shang Guandandan's eyes flickering between the two plates of rice noodles. Shang Guandandan waved his hand, indicating that she didn't have to do anything, then walked up to Lu Chang'an with Owl in his arms and opened his mouth. Lu Chang'an put a piece of beef into her mouth. Shang Guandandan bit it and sat down. Lu Chang'an fed Zhou Dongdong another piece. I haven't eaten enough. They followed Zhu Huntang and ate everything from the basin. Lu Chang'an signaled Zhou Shuling not to worry about these two. Are you calling me and Dongdong pigs? Pigs eat like pots, Shang Guandandan said angrily. Brother Chang'an, am I as good at eating as a pig now? Zhou Dongdong said happily. It turns out that when Zhou Dongdong first entered elementary school, Brother Chang'an said that piglets eat in a wash basin. That night, Zhou Dongdong wanted to prove himself by using a wash basin to eat, but his mother stopped him. Are you finally that powerful now? Yes, Lu Chang'an agreed. For children, motivation and education should be the main thing. Zhou Dongdong stood up quickly, opened his mouth and pounced towards Lu Chang'an's bowl. Lu Chang'an quickly grabbed Zhou Dongdong, who was trying to imitate pig eating, and put it aside. What a stupid child! He praised her for eating like a little girl. As powerful as a pig, you should learn how to eat as a piglet immediately. Shang Guandandan chuckled, Dongdong is so cute. By the way, Miss Zhu sent me a message today, saying that her kitchen will have a batch of fresh super large oysters shipped tomorrow and give us a big bucket. Zhou Shuling is looking forward to the super large oysters. It is her first time with Lu Chang'an. I went to the buffet and realized how big oysters can be. My usual impression is of the small oysters about the size of a 60-year-old in the alleys of Wuyi Road. A big bucket? We can't finish it, right? You can't eat this thing unless it's fresh, Lu Chang'an said with some worry. Zhou Shuling looked at Lu Chang'an strangely. Could he be someone else pretending to be him? Just kidding, Lu Chang'an laughed. A big bucket is enough. There are many ways to eat oysters. You can eat them raw, fried, roasted, pickled, or stir-fried. I'll handle it. You don't even know how to open oysters. Why can't I? Zhou Shuling was not convinced. When she was a child, she touched and handled mussels in river ponds. Raw oysters were almost the same as mussels. Big oysters are as big as my palm, and your arms are so long. You have to use force to open them. You can try it tomorrow. Lu Chang'an appreciated her dissatisfaction. Try, just try. How could it be so big? Is it bigger than the cafeteria? Zhou Shuling felt a little reluctant, but she couldn't let Lu Chang'an underestimate her, thinking that she couldn't even do such a small job. She is not Shang Guandandan. If she can't even do such a small job well, she might be considered useless by Lu Chang'an. Zhou Shuling was a little envious of Shang Guandandan. This little girl never cared whether Lu Chang'an disliked her. Not only did she not work, she would also get angry when Lu Chang'an asked her to work. When she was angry, she would move Lu Chang'an's electrical appliances, and there was nothing he could do to her. After eating the rice noodles, Zhou Shuling went to wash the dishes. Lu Chang'an remembered that he hadn't practiced retouching for a while. Some of the shortcut instructions were unfamiliar, and he might have forgotten some of the little tricks. He had to become familiar with them again. The photos I took for Nuan last year have not yet been retouched this year. It takes an hour to take photos and a year to retouch them, which is normal, but I can speed up the process and make it more efficient. After all, I am doing the post-production of photos for my girlfriend. Post-processing for Nuan's photos saves a lot of work. The background is good and the retouching is easier. Unlike some girls, post-processing for her is basically to make a new face. When Shang Guandandan saw Lu Chang'an sitting in front of the computer and turning on the computer, he put down the thermos and walked over, got under his arm, leaned in his arms and looked at the screen, tapping the Steam logo with his finger. I want to learn the application of new technologies that keep up with the times. Lu Chang'an suddenly felt that Shang Guandandan was not as good as Zhou Shuling. Zhou Shuling at least knows how to improve herself. With this idea, what about Shang Guandandan? Shang Guandandan is able to integrate into life as she is now, thanks to the coffin education that Lu Chang'an forced her to accept. After she left the coffin, she never had any operations to learn and improve herself. I just do nothing every day, boil water, drink effervescent water, play cards, eat, lead Zhou Dongdong around, and never do anything else meaningful. I haven't even learned to ride an electric bike yet. Now that I have added to my daily routine of playing games, I just don't keep up with the times to improve my knowledge level. Shang Guandandan ignored what he said and continued to tap the screen with his little finger. Lu Chang'an ignored her and opened Adobe Photoshop Elements 2017. Shang Guandandan waited for a while and found that Lu Chang'an had no intention of quitting to play games for her, so he went to get the thermos bottle, then got back to his original position and stood, drinking water while watching him order some. Finding that Sister Dandan had not come back to watch TV, Zhou Dongdong also came over. One big and one small raised their heads to watch the operations that they could not understand at all. Okay, you guys play. Lu Chang'an threw the mouse and scolded Zhu Huntang tomorrow when he saw her. It was all her fault. Lu Chang'an, defeat. Shang Guandandan and Zhou Dongdong, win. Some students may have misunderstood the end of the previous chapter. What Xiahua means is that Changsheng has been updated unstably, and there is basically no continuous update. After updating a chapter, I don't know when the next chapter will be updated. If there are too many new books in my collection, Xiahua just hurry up and update immortality, that's all. I don't know why it is interpreted as threatening readers. What idiot author would threaten readers like this? Please add the new book to your collection, thank you. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 841. When Lu Chang'an woke up in the morning, he habitually turned over and wanted to lie down on the bed for a while, but found that he was being supported, so he did a few halfway push-ups and sat up. He took a look at his cell phone, and An Nuan finally couldn't help but send a message asking why when he sent Lu Chang'an back yesterday, he felt that there was an inexplicable tacit understanding between him and the other two professors. Lu Chang'an smiled. He felt that she hesitated several times yesterday. He thought she could hold on until they met before asking, but she couldn't help but send a text message. Your mother didn't want me to stay overnight because it would affect her sleep, but she couldn't directly say that she wanted to drive me back, so she had to say that she wanted to go shopping in Hedong after dinner. At this time, I was very discerning. Naturally, I have to cooperate and put me down there. As for Professor Ling, she probably listened to our corner one night and didn't sleep well. It's just that she couldn't say anything, but Professor Lu and I have a tacit understanding. And also conforms to some of her wishes. Lu Chang'an explained that we are all adults, and adults are able to understand and cooperate with the details of these little eyebrows and eyes. There is no need to explain it explicitly, everyone understands it, and a lot of embarrassment and misunderstandings can be avoided. An Nuan is a girl after all, but she is An Nuan after all, and being able to detect the kind of communication that does not require explicit words is already much better than the average girl. Ordinary girl, Zhu Huntang. Zhu Huntang is a typical example of a loser. It's not that she is stupid, but that like Shang Guandandan, she grew up in an environment where others looked at her eyes and expressions. In comparison, Shang Guandandan has no self-awareness. Zhu Huntang is still loved by thousands of people. Naturally, it is difficult to break away from this state of waiting for others to look at her. Shang Guandandan is obviously already a plucked phoenix, inferior to a chicken. In this state, only her beloved daughter-in-laws are pampering her. After all, he had never been hit hard by the iron fist of socialism. Lu Chang'an punched him twice, and then he got up, kicked off his slippers and came to the living room. Shang Guandandan was actually still in front of the computer. When she heard the door open, she turned to look at Lu Chang'an. "You played all night," Lu Chang'an was surprised, and Shang Guandandan had two very obvious dark circles under his eyes. Shang Guandandan nodded slowly. Lu Chang'an felt something was wrong. Even if Shang Guandandan died suddenly while playing, she would not have any dark circles, so he took a closer look and found that she had painted the dark circles herself. Shang Guandandan's makeup skills are very poor, but she has rich experience in painting her own face. This can be seen from the fact that she is often mistaken for Sun Wukong by Zhou Dongdong. "Why did you give yourself a black eye?" Lu Chang'an asked incomprehensibly. Shang Guandandan took a selfie with his mobile phone, then took a picture of his computer desktop, and then posted it on his circle of friends. "He stayed up all night playing games last night. I want to see which of my daughters-in-law will be the first to show concern and condolences to me after posting on Moments," Shang Guandandan said to Lu Chang'an. Lu Chang'an went to wash his face and brush his teeth. When he went downstairs, Shang Guandandan had already wiped away the dark circles under his eyes and followed him to boil water. Zhu Huntang just happened to send someone to deliver the oysters. When it came to delivering food here, Zhu Huntang was rare and considerate. She knew that people here ate a lot, so she always sent huge portions. Zhu Huntang only had these advantages, so Lu Chang'an decided not to scold her today, but to scold her another day. The fact that she installed Steam on Lu Chang'an's computer was really hateful. A big bucket of oysters could only slightly reduce Lu Chang'an's anger. The people delivering the oysters followed Lu Chang'an's instructions and put down the big buckets before going back. Shang Guandandan took one out, gritted his teeth and pulled it hard, then threw it back. As he walked into the room, he said, "It's so hard to open it, I have no strength." Lu Chang'an ignored her. He didn't count on her help in the first place. He looked at the oysters and saw that they were neither the famous Belen copper oysters nor Genedo oysters. Kumamoto oysters have also become popular in recent years, but Zhu Huntang does not know how to purchase them. She believes that after the Fukushima incident, there were already people in Japan who radiated Ultraman and radiated Godzilla. Although Zhu Huntang is from Wanashima, she is not a green ractopamine. Nuclear frogs do not eat pigs nor do they eat nuclear food. Lu Chang'an took a closer look and found that it should be a close relative of the bluff oyster or a similar species, a deep-sea oyster that is more than 10 years old in Antarctic waters. At this time, Zhou Shuling and Zhou Dongdong went downstairs with a knife. Zhou Shuling looked at the oysters in the bucket, then looked at the knife in her hand, and slowly put the hand holding the knife behind her without saying a word. "Hair. I don't have classes in the morning, so I will come back early in the afternoon to process these oysters, and we will have some together in the evening." Lu Chang'an smiled and took Zhou Shuling's knife from behind. "Well, then I'll buy vegetables and ingredients." "You tell me what else to buy," Zhou Shuling said a little embarrassedly. These oysters looked like big rocks. Zhou Shuling didn't know how to start, so she didn't force herself, lest she material wasted. The most important thing is that he didn't laugh at himself, and he didn't seem to be prepared to dislike her for not being able to do it, otherwise Zhou Shuling would have to prove herself. Zhou Dongdong reached into the bucket and took out a bottle of red wine from under the pile of cold oysters. He turned around and shouted, "Sister Dandan, there is also the champagne you like to drink here." The bottle of this red wine was very similar to those of Shang Guandandan's champagne bottles. Zhou Dongdong concluded that it must be really delicious champagne water, but children would feel uncomfortable drinking it and would roll on the ground. Shang Guandandan came out quickly, looked at it in his hand, and said to Zhou Dongdong, "When you come back tonight, let's drink some together. This is a little different from champagne water. Maybe you won't be upset after drinking it." Zhou Dongdong jumped up and down, looking forward to it happily. After breakfast, Lu Chang'an took Zhou Dongdong to school on an electric bicycle, and taught Shang Guandandan how to ride an electric bicycle. Lu Xin was a little worried about losing his job, so he followed behind, yelling and shouting to show his presence. "You don't know how to ride by yourself. When will you learn how to ride?" Lu Chang'an asked Shang Guandandan on the way back. Shang Guandandan only knows how to push an electric scooter around, and then like now, she puts her hands on the back of Lu Chang'an's hands, squeezing into his arms very safely and simulating riding a bicycle. When Lu Chang'an's body swayed with the inertia of the turn, she also had to twist a few times. Lu Chang'an looked left and right at the road, and she also looked left and right. Lu Chang'an looked up at the red light, and she also looked at the red light. It looked like she was driving. Appearance. "No matter how familiar I am, are you already impatient?" Shang Guandandan said loudly. "When you took my little carriage to play with, I begged for it many times before you gave it back to me. Does this have something to do with what happened at that time?" Lu Chang'an couldn't understand that she always talked about things that happened more than 2,000 years ago. Failure is the mother of success. You will learn after you fail a few times. No, there is no failure if you try, but there is no success either. You are a success, I am a failure. Lu Chang'an stopped the electric bike, put his feet on the ground, reached out and pinched her cheek and pulled it several times before riding back again, not bothering to persuade her to ride on her own. Back in the community, Lu Chang'an saw Bai Hui walking slowly towards the sycamore tree as if taking a walk. Her eyes fell on the large bucket of oysters under the tree. Shang Guandandan honked the horn quickly and yelled, "Beep!" Bai Hui turned around and smiled. "Is something wrong?" Lu Chang'an parked the car and asked. "No. I was here with my cousin last night. I was just chatting with Xiao Tang. She said that you only have class this afternoon. I don't have class in the morning either, so I came over to have fun and chat with you about Bai Shui. The kind in the dispute between Buddhism and Taoism." After Bai Hui finished speaking, he smiled and said hello to Shang Guandandan. Shang Guandandan looked at Bai Hui with empty hands, nodded, and then took his mobile phone to feel the care and condolences of his daughter-in-laws. An unexpected update. I sincerely ask for collection and monthly votes for the new book. If you want to vote for Xiahua in the future, I hope you can vote for the new book. Concentration will have the advantage. Thank you. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 842. Bai Hui watched Shang Guandandan go upstairs. She held up her skirt and her movements were a little gentle. As soon as she walked up the stairs, she held her thighs down and rested for a while before taking another step. "Dandan's skirt is pretty, but it doesn't seem very convenient to go upstairs." Bai Hui's voice was a little louder, hoping to let Shang Guandandan know that he was praising her skirt. Lu Chang'an also looked back, and then said to the innocent Bai Hui, "She is pretending." She went upstairs like this in the hope that someone would help her up the stairs after seeing her, to show her noble status and help her. By the way, she is a considerate daughter-in-law. Shang Guandandan heard this, turned around and glared at Lu Chang'an, and then jumped up and down the stairs quickly. He knew clearly what she meant, but he never thought about coming to help her. He would hold the owl next to him later. Just have it dangling in front of your face. Bai Hui was stunned for a moment. This Shang Guandandan was very strange. He was thinking about some random things all day long. What was even more strange was that Lu Chang'an could actually see these little thoughts of Shang Guanduntun. Lu Chang'an, let me ask you something. Bai Hui stopped talking about Bai Shui with Lu Chang'an for the time being, because something made her a little worried. Ask. Lu Chang'an touched Lu Xin's dog head and said. Lu Xin was lying next to the bucket. The salty smell of the seafood made him want to lick it. The old man stretched out his tongue, trying to stir the oysters. Dan Dan seems to be quite cold to me. Does she have any objections to me privately? Or have I ever offended her? Bai Hui has always been a little confused about this. Shang Guandandan seemed to have a good relationship with many girls, not to mention Zhou Shuling and Zhou Dongdong. Zhu Huntang acted like a dog in front of Shang Guandandan, and even took the initiative to let Shang Guandandan touch his head. He just shook his head and stuck out his tongue to lick Shang Guandandan. Bai Hui was not targeting his best friend, but just happened to see Lu Xin licking oysters here, so he thought of such a metaphor. Even her cousins Zhongqing and Shang Guandandan seemed to like her a little. Zhu Huntang asked her cousin whether Shang Guandandan was easy to get along with. Zhongqing said that she and Shang Guandandan had a good relationship. She often took Shang Guandandan and Zhou with her. When Dong Dong goes to eat barbecue, of course he will call Lu Chang'an. Do you want to have a good relationship with her? Lu Chang'an laughed. He once reminded Bai Hui that Shang Guandandan is a very lucky person, and there is no harm in having a good relationship with her. Bai Hui nodded sheepishly and quickly explained, she is so cute. Who wouldn't like a girl like this? That's all. It's not like Zhu Huntang said. Having a good relationship with Shang Guandandan will help him occupy a place in Lu Chang'an's heart. Zhu Huntang was talking about the harem, but Bai Hui felt that she understood it this way. Cute girls all like cute girls, right? Lu Chang'an turned to look at Bai Hui. She was wearing white stockings today, with clean and soft girly legs. Her skirt was swaying, and her figure was so light that she seemed to be in the forest. The deer jumped around for a while and stopped for a while, pure and lively. Of course, as a personal characteristic, Bai Hui, who is still full of youth and vitality, is still eye-catching. Lu Chang'an has been used to seeing her for a long time. He has become accustomed to it and has not looked at it more. Actually, it's very simple. You just need to treat her to a meal, treat her to a few more meals, teach her how to put on makeup, or simply help her put on makeup, and give her some small gifts. Then she will like you. Lu Chang'an turning his head and looking upstairs. Shang Guandandan actually had no objection to Bai Hui. The Queen Mother was just very realistic. Bai Hui couldn't help but stand on tiptoes and raised the corners of her mouth slightly. In fact, she had nothing to do with Lu Chang'an, she just felt that everyone had a good relationship with Shang Guandandan. If she couldn't squeeze into such a social circle, she would inevitably be a little isolated. Feel. Girls are very concerned about this. For them, being excluded and unable to integrate into a certain circle is often the most uncomfortable point. But besides eating, what kind of gifts does Shang Guandandan like? It's not a good idea to ask Lu Chang'an everything. He has to put some thought into being sincere. If you ask Lu Chang'an, it is very likely that after Shang Guandandan received the gift, Lu Chang'an would say to Shang Guandandan, Bai Hui asked me to buy it. In Shang Guandandan's view, his intention may be to please her. Too obvious. By the way, you just said you wanted to discuss the dispute between Buddhism and Taoism with me, Lu Chang'an asked with a slight frown. Bai Hui nodded. The last time he called him, he talked a lot, and Bai Hui couldn't understand what he said. Later, when Bai Hui went back to investigate, he realized that the Bai Shui he knew was not the same thing as the Bai Shui most people know now. It contained too many historical and cultural knowledge stories. So Bai Hui went to buy some books and spent more than 1,000 yuan. After buying them back, even though he had only read 3 books and understood the basics, he would not talk about this topic with Lu Chang'an. He would only talk about it. He hesitated. She is even a little proud, and has some unique insights from her own female perspective. Actually, you have just entered college now, which is a critical moment for stabilizing the three views. During this period, if you can study the basic principles of Marxism well, it will be of great benefit to you, especially if you devote your time to studying the dispute between Buddhism and Taoism. The time spent on reading Mao Zedong will benefit you throughout your life. Lu Chang'an went on to say, after you have a general understanding of Mao Zedong, you can look at the issue of the dispute between Buddhism and Taoism from a higher and broader perspective. The historical materialism and the dialectical way of thinking about the problem are more. It can make you several levels better than those who have not received this education. Bai Hui looked at Lu Chang'an blankly. I bought so many books. I felt sleepy reading those crappy things. I didn't know how much coffee I drank before I persisted in reading a few books. Now you ask me to read Mao Zedong to understand basic principles of Marxism. Don't be so surprised. I'm not exaggerating. You see, many Western elites now have fully developed brains, but they just can't understand some problems. I would say it's because they haven't studied Mao Zedong and Marx. Do you believe it? Of course, even if some people understand it, they will not say it is another problem. Lu Chang'an thought for a while and made an analogy. Before the heliocentric theory, basically everyone believed that the sun revolves around the earth. These people, are they all idiots with brain problems? Of course not. They are no different from the current Western elites who are blindly anti-China. They are just limited in thinking and unable to break through cognitive barriers. Bai Hui stretched out her hand and signaled Lu Chang'an to stop. She felt like she was in a Mao Gai class. Her Mao Gai teacher also made similar remarks, always spreading the feeling of divine truth in the world. I'll learn, I'll buy it now. I'll buy a set first and have a look. Bai Hui exhaled. There was no harm in being friends with Lu Chang'an, even if he was forced to improve himself. Well, buy it? I can study this with you in the future. After all, I have only been studying Mao Zedong for a few decades, not that long. We can learn together, make progress together, find out and fill in the gaps, and improve each other. Lu Chang'an nodded. Study together? A picture emerged in Bai Hui's mind. It was a common picture decades ago. Men and women wearing green military uniforms and green military caps sat together to read and study seriously. It was a simple and beautiful feeling. As for what he said about decades of research, Bai Fen's soft ears ignored it. So Bai Hui pursed her lips and placed an order online. Hey, where's the 5th volume? Buy them individually, some merchants selling used books have them. I know, well, I placed the order. Lu Chang'an felt a little impressed by Bai Hui, and nodded seriously and praised, there are no girls who are not good at reading these books. Bai Hui's cheeks were slightly red. It was the first time that Lu Chang'an had praised her so seriously, and she couldn't help but feel sweet in her heart. Really, please give me some support for my new book. My current writing state is completely unprecedented in the past 2 years. I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 843. At this time, Shang Guandandan came downstairs. Because he had just seen WeChat and had to rush to play cards, he had no time to educate his children, so Shang Guandandan held the owl in his arms, waved it casually in front of Lu Chang'an, and left in a hurry. Dan Dan, why are you going? Bai Hui hesitated for a moment and caught up with Shang Guandandan. Kick away the beard. I can also play, and I'll help you read the cards, Bai Hui said positively. We just need to find someone, can you come on? Shang Guandandan looked at Bai Hui. Bai Hui nodded vigorously. Of course she can play. She even lost a lot to her mother during the Chinese New Year. Do you have money? Shang Guandandan wanted to ask this clearly. If she lost all her money, Bai Hui was the one Shang Guandandan brought with her. If she had no money, Shang Guandandan would help to cover it. Shang Guandandan was just a poor queen mother. She usually did not lend money to others, nor did she allow others to take credit. Bai Hui quickly turned on her mobile phone and showed Shang Guandandan the balance in her mobile wallet and the money in her wallet. Shang Guandandan looked at the roughly 8,355 yuan in Bai Hui's wallet and nodded slowly. Lu Chang'an watched Bai Hui follow Guandandan to play cards, and he somewhat understood Bai Hui's mentality. People like him are inevitably loved by everyone. Everyone likes to be friends with Lu Chang'an and is attracted by his personality charm. Who doesn't like such a humorous, funny, generous, handsome, and elegant man? Shang Guandandan is also very popular. Like Lu Chang'an, she exudes an irresistible charm to the people around her, causing these people to flock to her. Lu Chang'an took out an oyster, rinsed it under the faucet, then inserted his fingernails into the slits of the oyster, turned it slightly and then pried open the shell, taking out the meat inside and eating it. Oysters have their own flavor when eaten raw, but if the average person wants to eat them raw, they still have to pay great attention to the origin and hygiene of the oysters, as well as their own gastrointestinal adaptability. They do not need to eat all the remaining seawater in the oysters to express themselves. Knowing how to eat this is the correct sense of ritual. Eating raw is ultimately more primitive and will always lag behind cooked food, which represents human civilization and evolution. After Lu Chang'an ate one, he fed another one to Lu Sin. After each person and the dog ate a few, Lu Chang'an began to clean the other oysters to prevent the stains on the shell from contaminating the meat inside when opening them. Zhou Dongdong and Zhou Shuling. Although this little animal has already improved its physical condition, it still needs some care after all. After briefly cleaning the oysters, Lu Chang'an took the bottle of wine upstairs and put it in the refrigerator. Qin Yinan didn't prepare a red wine cabinet for him. He probably knew that Lu Chang'an lived a simple life and preferred white wine. Lu Chang'an couldn't help but think of the Korean drama The Penthouse that he had watched a little bit. In the drama, the mother-in-law and sister-in-law from a wealthy family were sarcastic. In order to reflect the luxury of wealthy life, they opened their mouths to eat some sunshine rose grapes. Lu Chang'an wanted to laugh a little. In domestic supermarkets, it costs more than 10 yuan a pound. There is also a rich woman who carries coach on her back. Han, the barrage expert, forcefully explains that this is how she wears her clothes every day, and that Chanel is only used for catwalks and dinner parties. Later, there was a party in this play that sounded like a high-end and elegant party. There were no servants to serve and remove the dishes. The attendees even specifically ordered that everyone was eating BJ roast duck. The hostess took out a dish from the refrigerator. A bottle of red wine is almost at the same level of living as Lu Chang'an. Although some refrigerators do have space for storing red wine, it is a bit interesting that an elite and wealthy family like the one in the show does not even have a dedicated wine cabinet. It was probably after seeing this that Lu Chang'an couldn't stand it anymore. It was too contrived, even though it had some flavor in the first few minutes. Another thing that is a little jarring when watching Korean dramas is that in order to show the luxurious life scenes of wealthy families, they only have one thing: eating meat and eating beef. So Lu Chang'an decided to cook fried bacon with garlic and chili pepper, braised beef ribs, and 2 other dishes for noon today. Bai Hui accompanied Shang Guandandan to play cards. If she was not chased away halfway, it would be noon after the game, so she could stay for a while. Have a meal together with classmates. Lu Chang'an soaked the cured beef in water and sent a message to Zhou Shuling, asking her to buy some side dishes for oysters at the supermarket over there. After a while, Bai Hui and Shang Guandandan came back. Seeing the two of them talking and laughing, it turns out that not only giving gifts and food can make Shang Guandandan happy, but they can also play cards together. This was a problem caused by Lu Chang'an not observing carefully. He remembered that one day Qin Yinan took Zhu Huntang as his companion and played cards with Shang Guandandan for a day. Shang Guandandan also posted many friends who had good cards that day. When it comes to how to lick the Queen Mother, no one can beat Qin Yanan. Hui has lost too much. I can't let people in the community win against her too much. Firstly, she is suspected of bullying her. Secondly, I brought her here. I have to protect her, otherwise my face will be ruined. Shang Guandandan glanced at the kitchen warily, and then explained to Lu Chang'an the reason for his early return. Normally, Shang Guandandan would not come back on time until there was nothing to do in the kitchen and he could just wash his hands and sit at the dining table to eat. Actually, I didn't lose much, just about 200 yuan, Bai Hui said happily, her cheeks flushed, and she always felt that making Shang Guandandan happy was as exciting as having succeeded in something big. That's quite a lot. Lu Chang'an sighed with emotion. You are really talented. As far as I know, you are the only one who has lost more than 200 in one morning in recent years. The last time someone lost like this was last year when Miss Wan was the one who loses in the mahjong parlor. She fired a few bearded cannons, but luckily I caught them all. Shang Guandandan was nervously grateful. If they were caught by Old Man Qian and Old Man Qin, they wouldn't be so arrogant. Bazio is gone? She would talk all day long, and then make Shang Guandandan feel embarrassed because she was the one who brought Bai Hui there. Lu Chang'an smiled and felt that Bai Hui was lucky. Shang Guandandan could catch her every shot she fired. As for saying that she did it on purpose, Lu Chang'an didn't think so because he had played cards with Bai Hui. Shoot the cannon. She was not that good at giving Shang Guandandan accurate water. Others must have won some, otherwise, those bad old men and women would definitely say that Bai Hui and Shang Guandandan were playing partnership cards, and the quarrel had broken up a long time ago, and they would not have been fighting until now. Let's have a meal at home at noon, and then go to school together after dinner. Lu Chang'an got up and prepared to cook. Shang Guandandan nodded, and then walked out the door. He was too tired from playing cards in the morning and wanted to lie down for a while. I'll help you cook, Bai Hui volunteered. You know how to cook? Lu Chang'an didn't believe it. When Bai Hui was playing at Gao Dui's house, it was Lu Chang'an who did the work. One time she entered the kitchen, and ended up standing against the wall watching Lu Chang'an work. Mom said that when you come to the homes of Lu Chang'an and other classmates, you should actively cook and help out. Bai Hui turned around and shouted to Shang Guandandan, who walked to the door, Dandan, the food is ready, I'll call you, come up and eat. Well, Anaxi is so good. Baiyan was so happy that she lowered her voice and said to Lu Chang'an, did you hear that Dan said I was good? She said the same about Xiao Tang before. Lu Chang'an shook his head, one by one, no matter what, Shang Guandandan is really good at taking advantage of the situation. Whether intentionally or unintentionally, she always manipulates the thoughts of these girls and women to her advantage. As expected of the Queen Mother. Hello everyone, a new week and January have begun. I hope you will try your best to vote for me monthly. If you can vote for new books, vote for new books. If you just want to vote for longevity, vote for longevity. If you don't want to vote for summer flowers, vote for others who are better and work harder. Author, thank you. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 844. When Bai Hui walked into the kitchen, she showed an aura that she wanted to take charge of everything. She pulled the hem of her clothes, smoothed her sleeves, and tied the apron first. Then she pulled the lace cord with her backhand and pulled hard. It felt a little difficult to tie it. Not on. Can you help me tie it? It feels like I've grown a second time. The tattooed breasts before are a bit small, and I can't even tie this apron, Bai Hui said calmly. He and Lu Chang'an were just more friends than ordinary friends. The relationship has become a little closer, but not to the point of transcendence. Generally, in a relationship between a man and a woman of this level, there is no need to be too shy. It would be a bit pretentious. It is natural to casually talk about one's recent physical condition. You can pull it down, Zhou Shuling can use it, and you and her are just the same. Lu Chang'an said so, still pulled hard, and helped her tie the apron at the back. This was the first time Lu Chang'an heard someone imply that his breasts were too big to wear an apron. Even Qin Yanan had never found such a reason to show off. It's also creative. Bai Hui's body trembled when he pulled her, because it was difficult to maintain balance with her hands raised, and she almost leaned into his arms. Of course, Bai Hui would not take the opportunity to do such a thing, as with the little bitch who deliberately threw herself into his arms. Like a child. She just blushed a little, but he seemed to know her bust size, shape, and other data very well. Hey, doesn't that mean he also knew Zhou Shuling well? Now that you've put on your apron, you have to work hard. Cut up the ginger, garlic, and pepper. Lu Chang'an directed Bai Fen. Bai Hui jumped and turned around, going to get the kitchen knife. Don't jump. The kitchen is a place where serious work is done. Lu Chang'an held down Bai Hui's head. The kitchen was a heavy area and it was forbidden to jump around. Because all the animals are jumping around, they will die if they enter the kitchen. Bai Hui snorted. If it was in Nuan, Lu Chang'an would definitely not have said so much. Bai Hui had seen some photos in Nuan sent of Lu Chang'an cooking at her home. Those photos all showed that when Lu Chang'an was cooking, Nuan was not only active in the kitchen, but also took photos of Lu Chang'an, fed him, asked him to take selfies, etc. Now of course Bai Hui wouldn't mention Nuan, nor would he take a few photos of Lu Chang'an cooking and post something like "I'm having dinner at a classmate's house today." That would be too stupid. Only those low-end green teas that can't wait to be promoted do this. Can I chop the ginger, garlic, and pepper into fine pieces? It will taste better this way. Bai Hui asked Lu Chang'an's opinion. Bai Hui started to go under the knife. She was not a young lady who kept her hands clean, nor was she the type who had been used to helping the family since she was a child. She was mediocre in housework and careless in cooking. I want to buy a car, Lu Chang'an, do you know anything about cars? Bai Hui asked. I know tractors. If you want a tractor, give me some money and I can assemble one with excellent performance for you, Lu Chang'an answered without any questions. Don't mistake the tractor for a vehicle. I think back then, tractors made an indelible and huge contribution to the construction of this country. Bai Hui said angrily, it's disgusting. Why do I need a tractor? Besides, I have ridden on a tractor at Gao Dui's house. The tractor is very bumpy. People will look at me later. Lu Chang'an glanced at Bai Hui suspiciously. Recently, Bai Hui has repeatedly launched mental attacks on him, trying to use the most primitive method to destroy Lu Chang'an's spiritual barriers, causing his realm to decline and become a vulgar person. Could it be that spring has arrived? Looking at his eyes, Bai Hui turned around proudly and continued to ask, seriously, I plan to buy a red car, like Professor Liu's, it seems to be a Volvo. The female college student drives a BMW, Mercedes-Benz and the like are a bit ostentatious and have a bad reputation. Are you deliberately looking for trouble? Lu Chang'an couldn't bear it anymore. Did you know that Professor Liu is going to buy a new car, and her Volvo will be driven by a Nuan, so why don't you buy the same one? Bai Hui pursed her lips and said nothing. Could he even notice this? Bai Hui waited for a while before hesitating and said, we are good friends. We drive the same car, which makes it look like we have a good relationship. You stutter when you're being duplicitous, don't you know? Lu Chang'an sneered, you can buy it if you want, as long as we don't run into each other on the campus of Xiang University one day and drive into each other. What nonsense! Bai Hui confidently chopped the peppers vigorously. She and An Nuan had such a good relationship, how could they collide with each other while driving? Seeing Lu Chang'an, she might hit him, But of course not with the car. Bai Hui glanced at him with a blushing face. She just hit him a few days ago, so she didn't know how he felt about being hit. After you chop the ginger, garlic, and pepper, you can go out. If you are absent-minded, you will chop the knife in your hand sooner or later. Lu Chang'an waved his hand. Bai Hui thought for a while and then agreed, I'll help you retouch the pictures later. I feel like the photos you took of An Nuan have been over half a year and they haven't been retouched yet. Okay, let's put the computer in the living room. Both systems have photo editing software installed. Bai Hui finished chopping the side dishes, washed her hands, stood at the door and shouted, Lu Chang'an. Huh? Lu Chang'an, who was chopping cowboy bones, turned around and looked at him doubtfully. Bai Hui smiled and walked out without saying anything. In her eyes and smile, there was something she wanted to say to him, but his obvious doubts were telling her that he didn't understand, or telling her don't she want to say it. Sitting in front of the computer, Bai Hui held the mouse. Thinking that Lu Chang'an should have held this mouse countless times, his heart trembled. Bai Hui bent his fingers and completely held the entire mouse, as if he was holding his hand. Same. At this time, there was a sound at the door. Bai Hui sat up straight and looked back, only to see Shang Guandandan walking close to the door, walking as far away from the kitchen as possible. I want to play. Shang Guandandan walked to the computer and pointed at the computer screen. Hey, where is my favorite Steam logo? Shang Guandandan was going to rest for a while downstairs, but thinking that Bai Hui was being controlled and instigated by Lu Chang'an, he should take the opportunity to go upstairs to play games now. What do you want to play? Bai Hui asked curiously. Shang Guandandan reached out and pulled out the computer's power supply and plugged it in. She turned it on and pressed a key to enter the Win system. She only switched systems in this way. She pointed to the Steam logo that appeared this time. Normally Lu Chang'an doesn't use it anymore. This TV will soon be mine, for me and Dong Dong to play games. Ah, usually you and Dong Dong use it. Bai Hui let go of the hand holding the mouse and laughed twice. I'll teach you how to play Jelly Bean Man, can you? It's a stupid game. Shang Guandandan thought for a moment. He had a daughter-in-law who accompanied him in all kinds of things, but he still lacked a daughter-in-law who would accompany him. As a daughter-in-law who plays games, let's see if Bai Hui has this potential. If you are good at playing games, I will let you be my daughter-in-law who plays games with me. Anyway, Lu Chang'an likes you. Shang Guandandan still likes Bai Hui, as long as she doesn't drag him to dance. Instead, just play with Shang Guandandan. Hui Hui, did you hear that? Bai Hui came back to her senses and couldn't help but lower her voice. Her cheeks were warm. She wasn't really elated, but her voice was a little shaky. Her vocal cords seemed a little uncontrollable. Her heartbeat affected her breathing. Naturally, it was a little awkward to speak. What are you blabbering about? What are you blabbering about? He, does he like me? When people say they like her, it's definitely not the appreciation between friends that Lu Chang'an said, right? Unlike ordinary people, when a boy likes a girl, it definitely means he likes her in an ambiguous and heart-beating way. Of course, Lu Chang'an likes your type of figure, appearance, and personality the most. Shang Guandandan patted Bai Fen's soft palm. He is a lewd and slutty person. You should make more use of your figure. I've taught you so much. Come and help me fight off my beard next time. Okay, if you don't teach me anything, I will come and help you get rid of your beard. Bai Hui pursed her lips and nodded vigorously, her heart beating like thunder. She didn't know whether she should take what Shang Guandandan said seriously. If you have a chance, just ask Xiao Tang. Last time, Xiao Tang said that as long as Shang Guandandan recognized her, she could be Lu Chang'an's harem or something. Even though you knew it was nonsense, it didn't matter if you asked, anyway. I don't take it seriously, I just want to, just have a casual chat. After lunch, Lu Chang'an was about to go to school, only to learn that Bai Hui had asked for leave in the afternoon, and she wanted to accompany Shang Guandandan to fight off his beard. Lu Chang'an was surprised and couldn't help but sigh that this person must be crazy. He called Zhu Huntang and asked her to go to school early with him. The new semester was new and she had to arrive early but not leave early. Zhu Huntang's class schedule, including elective courses, was exactly the same as Lu Chang'an's. Thank you all for your generous rewards, and thank you for supporting my new book. When you support the new book, it will stimulate the renewal of longevity. Xiahua will gradually accumulate the motivation for renewal and more encouragement and then turn it into practical actions of coding. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Can Ru Xiahua. Chapter 845. Lu Chang'an did not wait for her at the gate of the community. If he waited for her here, he didn't know when she would arrive. Zhu Huntang is the only one who dares to make Lu Chang'an talk a lot of nonsense until he gets impatient. The correct thing to do is to go to the door to urge her, make her annoyed, and transfer her torment to him to torture her. After Lu Chang'an went upstairs, Zhu Huntang had just finished lunch and hadn't changed her clothes. She stepped on a balancing car made into a cloud shape. She waved when she saw Lu Chang'an, and the balance car sprayed mist in all directions, including above. Came over. Lu Chang'an frowned, as expected of someone who likes to play with Zhou Dongdong. You are lucky enough to see the fairy flying in the clouds and mist. Zhu Huntang stepped on the balancing car, slightly taller than Lu Chang'an, and felt extra powerful. He naturally spoke to Lu Chang'an in a bossy tone, seeing my beauty and fairy spirit, do you feel like you want to worship me? Homage. I'll give you a thumbs up. Lu Chang'an felt that if she drove this thing and rushed out of the roof of Beilong Center, he would express his admiration for her. But Lu Chang'an would not say this. Maybe she would think that Lu Chang'an would definitely save her, and if she really tried, would Lu Chang'an save her then? Or are you happy to focus on raising a second child? It was he who was in trouble. Seeing that he had no intention of worshipping her, Zhu Huntang didn't take it seriously. The old man was just arrogant. It was obvious from his expression that he struggled for a while between worshipping and being reserved. Zhu Huntang drove the Yunduo balance car and circled around Lu Chang'an. Soon the mist completely enveloped Lu Chang'an. This is the most advanced cloud and mist manufacturing technology that can make the mist extremely thick and linger for a long time. Grandpa, I suddenly remembered that when I went to Wuo Mountain to play, I saw a sea of clouds at the foot of the mountain. It would be fun if we could soar in the sea of clouds and ride in the mist. Zhu Huntang lives here and can usually see clouds and mist lingering around him, but he doesn't feel it. The sea of clouds is so spectacular. When the whole city was immersed in fog, Zhu Huntang could see a similar scene on the top floor of Beilong Center, but such weather was rare. What kind of mountain is Wuo Mountain? Lu Chang'an frowned and realized that she was probably talking about Hungshan Mountain. Many people in southern Hunan call Hungshan Mountain Nanyu Mountain, but few people in other places call Mount Taishan Dongyu Mountain and Huashan Mountain Zio Mountain. In fact, many people nowadays are not much more educated than Zhu Huntang. If you randomly pick 10 people and ask them to name which 5 mountains are the 5 sacred mountains within 10 seconds, it would be good if 5 or 6 of them can say it correctly. The 5 mountains you are talking about are Nanyu Hungshan. The 5 mountains are Dongyu Taishan, Nanyu Hungshan, Zio Huashan, Biu Hungshan, and Zhonggyo Songshan. Among the 3 mountains and 5 mountains, the 5 mountains are fixed, while the 3 mountains have different terms. Do you remember? Lu Chang'an took the opportunity to educate her on the subject. Wuo couldn't figure it out and was basically even worse than illiterate. Illiteracy is often just illiterate, but it does not mean that they do not understand common sense. I have seen someone make a dragon-like kite that can fly dozens of meters long. You said that if we make a dragon kite and fly it, then you take me to step on the dragon's head, and then go to the sea of clouds in Wuo Mountain. Li Fei, how majestic is that? Those who go to burn incense will definitely kneel down and kowtow when they see us, and truly worship us, Zhu Huntang said with great longing, even though she is a real fairy, but let people worship her. Worship is often just a money spell, which is a bit boring. Letting others be so shocked that their knees become weak and they kneel down involuntarily is what Zhu Huntang wants to pursue now. Go and play by yourself. Tie a lifeline to yourself and let the helicopter hang from it. You are not in danger. Lu Chang'an was not interested at all. He had done this before to create some omens of destiny to build momentum, but now, there are still many stupid people nowadays, and this approach has certain effects. No, I want to play with you. It's fun to play with you. Zhu Huntang became more and more interesting as he thought about it, grabbing Lu Chang'an's arm and shaking it back and forth. Why? I don't know. Anyway, I like playing with you more and more. I just like it. Zhu Huntang leaned over and rubbed his cheek against Lu Chang'an's shoulder. He even acted coquettishly. This is like a husky who is usually crazy and suddenly imitates a golden retriever and acts like a coquettish person, which makes people feel uncomfortable. Okay, if we have the chance to play together, it would be more fun to bring Zhou Dongdong along. Lu Chang'an reluctantly agreed. Hey, I knew you doted on me, Zhu Huntang said proudly. You can go ahead and dream. I'll get annoyed when I see you, so I won't get any points. Baa. I don't know why she suddenly started meowing like a sheep again. Lu Chang'an stepped on her balance bike and drove her off to change clothes. There is no way to count sheep, so people have to count sheep before going to bed. Zhu Huntang explained why she imitated sheep meowing, while having someone open the metal explosion-proof door of her dressing room to change into a small skirt. Lu Chang'an drove Zhu Huntang to school. Zhu Huntang suddenly felt that he was a little tactless. He actually chose to be in the same class as Lu Chang'an last year. In fact, he could play with him anytime he wanted. Why did he have to be in the same class? As a result, now, I have completely lost my personal freedom. Now she is being bullied and humiliated by Lu Chang'an and Qin Yinan in her campus life. If she wants to change classes and majors, the couple will definitely hinder her. Where's your little white pig? Sitting in the car, Zhu Huntang put Lu Chang'an's hand on a little pig doll, pressed his fingers and scratched around on the little pig doll. This can create a psychological hint for him. Maybe when he is with Bai Hui, he can't help but scratch Bai Hui. Zhu Huntang admires himself for being as witty as me. Bai Hui and Shang Dan went to fight off Hu Hu. Lu Chang'an didn't even bother to explain that Bai Hui was not his little white pig. In his age, he had never seen many people who wanted to make their best friend look like a stepmother all day long. Zhu Huntang was surprised. It seemed that Bai Hui had finally figured it out. He couldn't help but laugh. I really envy your luck. I slept with Bai Hui last night and helped you inspect the goods. It was really amazing. Lu Chang'an grabbed the little pig doll, put the pig's nose into her mouth, and even started to describe it. He was really arrogant. Ah, bullying me again. Zhu Huntang danced with joy, snatched the little pig doll and crawled over to do the same thing, stuffing all the pigs into his mouth. Lu Chang'an reached out and grabbed the back of her neck and pushed her away. Zhu Huntang was immediately subdued by one move. He was struggling, rolling, and kicking in the back car, but there was nothing he could do to him. Lu Chang'an sighed. Although the reason for controlling her now was not because of going to school, he did think of the children who struggled with their parents every year when kindergarten or first grade started and didn't want to go to school. I surrender, Zhu Huntang shouted. Lu Chang'an snorted and let go of the back of her neck. Zhu Huntang hummed and came closer again. Lu Chang'an raised his hand and glared. Zhu Huntang pouted, continued to hum and then rubbed against him, leaning on his arm and closing his eyes. At this time, he shouldn't go to school at all. It's nap time. If you feel sleepy, take a rest. When she entered the Xiongnan University campus, there was still some time before class. Zhu Huntang used the car TV to watch Bai Hui's dance video. Now her video has more than 1 million clicks. She collaborated with a friend to dance the dance video of New Treasure Island, even more than 10 million. If she could kill Lu Chang'an under a raging bear, her life would be complete. Zhu Huntang secretly glanced at Lu Chang'an while watching the video. Lu Chang'an took a bottle of orange juice from the car refrigerator and drank it, and glanced at the dance from time to time. Although Bai Hui was not a dance major, she was willing to work hard and learn, and now she can control various styles. The barrage praised her dancing skills. Has also increased a lot. At this time, someone knocked on the car window. Lu Chang'an opened the car curtain and saw Yan Qingchen, so he lowered the car window. "Why is it you?" Yan Qingchen was a little surprised, and then felt that her exclamation was a bit rude, and said quickly, "I have something to do with Zhu Huntang, actually, I have something to do with you." Zhu Huntang quickly took a blanket and covered himself from head to toe. If Yan Qingchen was smart enough, he would have known that this was an invisibility technique. "I know, I have to give her extra lessons tonight, right?" Lu Chang'an easily pulled off Zhu Huntang's blanket. "What do you want from me?" "I brought you souvenirs, let me give them to you now." Yan Qingchen held up a snakeskin bag and raised it. Lu Chang'an's favorite thing is local specialties. How could he be considered a city dweller now? People in the city like pure local products, so they opened the door and got out of the car with a smile, taking the local products in their hands. "You can get in the car, have a seat, chat with Zhu Huntang, and have a drink." "No, let's talk. I'm going to the classroom first." Yan Qingchen said gratefully to Lu Chang'an, "I have saved enough money, and I will take my mother to Junxia to check up on her health soon, and let her visit Hunan by the way." Her wish is greatly fulfilled. It may take a day or two to make up for the missed lessons. "Okay, you can stay with your mother for a week, no, a month, and I will pay for the tuition fees." "Where does your mother want to go?" "You can accompany her to travel around the world. I will sponsor the whole journey." Zhu Huntang heard this and immediately supported it. Yan Qingchen is very filial, and it is best for the mother and son to go to Antarctica for vacation. Lu Chang'an closed the car door, as if shutting the car did not count what Zhu Huntang said. Yan Qingchen's mother was Yan Hui, and she was an acquaintance back then. For all kinds of requests, I would like to recommend a new book by an old author. The author started writing urban harem novels in 2010. This year he published a new book, My Mom Takes Me to Cultivation. It is very beautiful. I hope everyone will support it and think about it. I'm really grateful for the support of I'm Really Immortal, and I'm grateful for it.